So, hi everyone. Today I am really lucky to have Bobeden all the way from Australia back. And Bob, I've woken you up at, well, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, isn't it, for you?
Yeah.
Well done. Good effort. Good effort. I'm very impressed. How's it going over there? Whereabouts in Australia are you, and how are things going there?
I'm in the Whitsunday Islands, which, if you look at Australia, is the northeast corner. Probably at about 2 o'clock, and my next neighbour is the Great Barrier Reef. And in the Whitsunday Islands, so we got 74 islands, most of which are untouched.
Wow.
They're staying there. It's a beautiful part of the world to be. And I'm living in my old caravan under a mango tree because I lost everything a few years ago. But I'm happy as a clam. Happy as a clam. Yeah.
How fantastic. And are you quite sort of isolated from all the shenanigans over there? Or what's it like on the Whitsundays where you are?
Well, we've got clear skies, no chemtrails. There might be some fluoride in the water, but I catch rainwater anyway. Um, I'm amazed at the number of sheeple up here that put masks on. But I haven't worn a mask. For me, freedom's an inside job. So one benefit of all this ridiculousness is the world's quieter up here. There's less traffic around.
Yeah.
And people, when they do meet, are more courteous.
Mm.
And I think the message is slowly sinking in that, we do need sunshine. We do need hugs. We do need to embrace each other in community to survive. And so more and more people are waking up, and they either will or they won't,
Yeah.
There will come a time when like, everybody's on their own journey, so they'll either go, wow, this is a load of crap, I'm not having this, or they just keep going, bah, 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 and,
Now, I'm going to stop anyone that's nasty to sheep, because I don't believe any sheep are as stupid as most humans. So no more sheep jokes.
okay.
I'm starting the Speak Up for Sheep group. So, but no, it's a very.
What was that movie? Bar-ram you. Bar-ram you. It was
I don't know what that means.
movie.
I love Wallace and Gromit. I love the sheep and Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
Is that the
one? I do.
Yeah.
Right.
So no, I mean, it really is a lovely, lovely place. When I was traveling around Australia, I never made it out to the Whitsundays because it was a bit above my budget. But so last time we spoke, we had a lovely conversation about you telling us your story with the gift of depression. And today, I'm delighted to tell everyone you're going to be talking about the end of depression. So what's going, Bob? Tell us all about it.
Well, it's a bold statement, but I believe in the very depth of my heart that there is no such thing as mental illness. And what I will share now goes to support that. But I'd like to throw 3 words on the table first. The first one is integrity. That goes up on the wall at the top, big golden letters. And then below that, 2 more words, kiss and sue. KISS, I believe the universe operates under the KISS principle, keep it simple, sovereign. And SUE, we are all sovereign, unique, and equal. So I'll just leave those out there in the background as a guiding light for where I'm coming from. Now, how can I put it? I've been researching this stuff since 1984, and I've got an amazing intellect. And I was suffering from depression for that, a long period of that time. And I realized that I wasted over 20 years trying to think my way out of depression.
Yeah.
And then, I went to all the psychiatrists and psychologists and support groups, and even ran support groups. And it was getting nowhere because I was trying to approach it from the left brain, the mind. And psychiatry and psychology, they only work with the mind.
Mm.
And so what got me through depression was getting in touch with the feelings like the pain of depression was really real. And the only way I healed it was turning my brain off, turning my mind off, and then feeling my way through all those moments of terror that I'd swallowed as a child, and all the abuse, all those trapped feelings. I just got them out. So it was the feelings that did the healing, right? So I go to a phrase that Charlie Ward uses a lot about our internal moral compass.
Yeah.
I believe at the very center of every being, there is this knowing about what is right and what is wrong. It's our moral compass, and that's where our integrity resides.
Mm.
And if you break your moral compass, then there is a price to pay. So Western society, we've been programmed for generations and generations and generations by television and society, television, TV. It's full of programs. Yeah. So I'll take PTSD as an example. Now, to take the life of another human being is going to be the ultimate sin, the ultimate wound of the soul, totally denying your moral compass, because, in my heart of hearts, I know it's absolutely wrong to take the life of another human being or an animal, And so by obeying your programming and not listening to your heart, you have broken your moral compass, and the bill must be paid. So for committing that sin in the spiritual, if you like, it manifests in the physical as those strange behaviors like depression and PTSD. And, that is the symptom, but the cause is that you're not following your moral compass, following your heart. And from the research I've done, not one psychiatrist or psychologist has ever claimed to have cured anybody. And they don't, because they don't want cures, they want customers. So there's a vested interest in keeping this myth alive about, oh, it's a chemical imbalance in the brain. Well, that's a load of bollocks. Sorry, bullshit. That's just as bad. There is no scientific evidence to support that claim. And their DSM, their Diagnostic Statistical Manual, is a book of fiction. They just, like we shared earlier, in the early 1900s, if you were an unwed mother, you were considered insane. Or if you were homosexual, you were considered insane. And that's a total load of crap, absolute load of crap. And even psychiatrists now are coming out and saying, yeah, it's a scam. It's a scam. And you ask any psychiatrist what causes depression? Well, we don't know.
It's another sort of syndrome. We get this a lot in the animal medical world. Anytime you don't know what the issue is, it's a syndrome. Can I just come back to ask one question about what you just said then? Because I think it's a really important thing about your moral compass, which I think is absolutely key to any sort of happiness, enlightenment, how we live our lives. But coming back to taking another life, are there any circumstances where you could see that it wouldn't be breaking your moral compass to stand, to take another life? For example, self-defense or...
Well, if I look at the world that I want to live in, where we all live in harmony and community and mutual respect, then that situation would never arise. In our current situation, the only position that would justify me taking somebody else's life is if they were threatening my life. If they were about to kill me, then I would defend myself like the full warrior that I am. But that's the only instance. But in the world that we're going to, that's never going to arise, because that's the shift.
Yeah, I really agree with that, Bob. I'm just thinking, there's a lot of controversy in America. I don't watch the news myself, but I've heard about a policeman who shot a woman dead who was about to murder another woman. So by him taking the murderer's life, he saved the life of the innocent person. So it's interesting, isn't it? It's a complex, you can see how complex these dilemmas are in people's lives and these decisions people have to make. I mean, personally, if anyone was one of my children, I know I could do anything to save their lives quite happily and without breaking compass.
Why do police need bullets? They don't. They could use tranquilizer guns.
That's a very good point. That is a very good point, actually. They really could use tranquilizer guns, and that is a perfect scenario. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's looking outside the box, isn't it? We're so used to with everything that we're programmed, as you started off the talking to, we're programmed to thinking it's A or B, when actually there's an infinite number of solutions that most of us haven't even thought of.
Yeah. Yeah, well, going back to, I'll pick another, ADHD.
Yeah.
Childhood is not a mental illness. Like when I was a young tucker, you know, I was so full of beans, I ran everywhere. And then you got to go to school and sit still for about 4 hours when all I wanted to do was run through the forest.
Yeah.
You know, and now they call that, oh, he's got attention deficit. You know,
no,
he hasn't. He just wants to run and play. So how about they have PE and sports in the morning so that the kids get all the energy out, and then they'll sit relaxed in the afternoon. You know, and they've expelled it. You know, just
completely following the normal rhythms. You know, most humans, like most animals, will say exert their energy. We'd be out hunting, we'd be gathering, we'd be doing our jobs, and then if you were lucky enough to have a nice lunch, you'd rest after lunch to digest your food, sort of thing. You're so right. It's so ridiculous where we see the symptom as the child that can't sit still, instead of saying how ridiculous it is that we're even asking them to sit still in that circumstance in the first place. I see it the whole time, Bob, with animals. And people saying that my animal's got a behavioural problem, and me trying to explain, no, the animal hasn't got a behavioural problem. You have an expectation problem, which is a completely different scenario. So it's fascinating, and I'm loving at the moment. I'm absolutely loving the discussions with people where we can question these ridiculous norms that we've been led to believe are rules, which they're not.
Well, where I've got to in my own journey, Catherine, is I live in heart space, which just means for me, I bet my life on trusting my intuition. So, and now I do. You know, there's no doubt. And also, I listen to and obey my body.
Yeah.
Now, my body's always telling me stuff. Now, when I was in the Matrix, you got to push through the pain. Oh, you got a backache or something, taking all these painkillers, but you got to work, you got to, you know, and that's just absolute bullshit. And now I'm fortunate enough, no, not fortunate enough, I have created a lifestyle where I am free to totally obey my body. Yeah. So when my body's tired, we sleep. And when my body's awake, we play. And it's that. Keep it simple, sovereign. You know, life is supposed to be simple. I don't see dolphins stressed out with time managers and mobile phones and having to dash from one meeting to another. You know, they just swim and play. Like, we're the only species on the planet that's pushing ourselves towards mass suicide, only because we're following the programs and not following our inner knowing, following our hearts. And the interview I did with Shay the other day, which I titled "The End of Depression," for me was like put a line in the sand. It meant I got closure on my book, and I can start writing the next one. But also, I have cast that spell out. This is the end of depression. This is the end of this lie that is mental illness, because there is no such thing. Mental illness is just the result of you not living your truth, not living in harmony with nature,
Yeah.
worshipping science and technology instead of getting your hands in the dirt and go barefoot and, you know, go skinny dipping and, you know, living a natural life. So people call this the Great Reset, the Great Awakening. For me, it's more like the Great Remembering who we were and how we used to live and work together.
Do you know,
So yeah,
that is really poignant for me, what you've just said there about the great remembering. I've had sort of 2 weeks of literally remembering, from whether you call it from past lives, whether you call it from inner knowing, whatever, however people want to label it. But it's been really incredible when you suddenly realize that I'm not even going to incrementally just make little incremental changes. I'm just going to throw the book away completely. And as you say, follow your inner guidance. And it's so sad that we've moved so far away from that. I mean, when you look at the way most of our children, you know, they're dragged up, they're ready in the morning, they're rushed to get off to school, they follow a program that doesn't suit them at all and is completely unsuited for the world that we live in anyway, whether you know, in any way, for creating a new world or for living in the existing world, whichever way you look at it. And it's fascinating when I watch my animals. I mean, as you know, I'm lucky enough, like you, to be surrounded by animals, and it's really fascinating to watch them literally following their guidance. You know, my dogs will get up in the morning, they'll have a lovely walk, then they'll have their breakfast, and then they'll sleep and they'll rest and they'll digest their food. And then they'll listen to it. It's just beautiful to watch. And as you say, we've got away from those natural rhythms that really serve us and make us thrive. And we're so used to living by rules that actually, for most of us as adults, okay, children, different position. You, a lot of the time, you're bound by what your parents allow you to do and don't allow you to do. But when you look at most of us as adults, a lot of that box, those constraints we put ourselves in, we've put ourselves in. They're not actually real. I know you could argue the case that if you're in an employed job and you've got to be at work at a certain time, but again, how many people have the conversation with their bosses and suggest something different?
well, when I worked for ESSO at their research facility in the UK, and I worked there for 13 years, and the best company I ever worked for, and it was a beautiful country estate. It was the old Singer sewing machine family's estate, but ESSO bought it and turned it into the best engine test laboratory in Europe. And it was a great place, great place. And my mind was having a ball there, but we had flex time.
Mm.
So we contracted, you know, with the company that we would do 37 and a half hours a week, but we could negotiate, you know, like I could work a 12-hour day, you know, on Monday to have Tuesday off or half a Tuesday off, you know, as long as in the 7-day period of the week that I did my 37 and a half hours. So we had flex time. So that was human.
Yeah.
That was human. And we've gone so far away from just behaving like humans. You know, I'm a human being, not a human doing.
Mm.
But especially for men, they get their whole self-worth from doing, from producing. Oh, I've got to produce 100 widgets today, otherwise I'm no good. They've internalized this. They've got to produce. You don't. I don't have to do anything to justify my existence in this paradise. Just being is enough. And I've noticed since the 1950s, when I was born in 52, more and more of our natural rights and freedoms are stripped away, there is more pain in society. There is more depression, you know, and with this lockdown thing, that's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. Everybody's bunched into such a tiny box now that the pain is just too much to bear, and that's why suicide rates are going up. But that bubble will burst soon, because there are more and more people like me that are realizing that their pain they're feeling is not real. It is the matrix, and it's not a case of take the blue pill or take the red pill. It's take no bloody pill. You don't need a pill. You just need to reconnect with your natural wonder of being. Like, you look at the toddler, Catherine, you know, and they start taking their first steps, and they got their starfish fingers out, and the world's magical, and hello, you know, and that's what I'm trying to get back to, because that's what gets beaten out of us. You look at that same toddler in 7 or 8 years' time, and it's, yes, Dad, yes, yeah, I'll sit down and shut up. Children should be seen and not heard, you know, and the magic's beaten out of us. And I'm so grateful that I actually did that work of healing the wounds of my childhood, because I believe, and you know, I know we're all on our own journey, but I believe that everybody in Western society never had their emotional and spiritual needs met, and their developmental needs met as a child. So that just says to me, and I don't like using we, but I think it's fair to say that we are all victims of victims, and if you don't hand it back, you pass it on. You know, like Mum abused me for years, and I hated her for it. And it wasn't until she told me her story about her violent, abusive childhood, I could let go of the hate through understanding. Yes, Mum was doing her very best, but all she was doing was dumping on me what got dumped on her. So by sharing our stories, we healed.
Yeah, it is fascinating though, isn't it? Because you can have several siblings in the same family that will experience the same upbringing, but all deal with it very differently. And, you know, going back to your thing about depression, you know, my understanding is, well, I've seen it for myself, that there's lots of areas of the world where depression doesn't exist. And when you look at, you know, sort of what's happened to us as a society, a lot of modern ages, you know, I was looking at some stuff from King Henry VIII's time and everything, and I don't think any of us would want to live in that time. I mean, talk about oppression and control and lack of freedom and terrible working conditions, and unable to have any form of self-expression for most people, regardless of what area of society. So I still see that, you know, we blame it on the current time, and we're very much in the blame mentality, and we can say, oh, it's so difficult for everyone now because of this and that. But I think every age in history has had its own unique challenges, but it's the attitude you bring to it. And I think all this labeling, like you said, with a lot of these conditions, can be a double-edged sword. You know, I'm sure some people could argue for their benefits, and that would be an interesting discussion to have. But equally, it's incredible the levels of depression and mental illness that there are now. I mean, when I was a child, it was completely different, wasn't it? And I do think we live in a society where a lot of people do not do stuff to help other people. It's a very self-centered society that people are brought up in, to think about me. And one of the things that has been successful, as my understanding, is that, you know, getting people to do things for other people can be one of the biggest benefits for curing people with mental illnesses, to looking outside their own little world.
Well, what is our natural basic nature, you know? What? Loving, supportive, caring, empathic.
Community.
What? Yeah, common unity. Yeah. And warrior. And they're and joyful and blissful. And my greatest attribute, the thing I love about me most, is my indestructible sense of humor. You know, and through generations, and not even generations, centuries of conditioning and programming, if I wanted to change the world, I'd get rid of two things tomorrow or right now: competition and greed. Now, how can you live in harmony if you're competing with your neighbor? It's not going to happen. And that's why the whole system, you know, you go to work and you're striving to get promotion, so you're treading on other people to climb up the ladder, and where does the ladder lead you? To isolation. You get to the top and you're on your own.
Mm.
It's a natural progression, hey? So why do that? You know, there's a tribe in Africa, and I can't remember the name, but if somebody does wrong in the tribe, instead of chastising and beating the guy, they all get round him and say, well, we haven't loved you enough. We haven't loved you enough. We haven't. So how can we help you to heal? And which rolls on to what's happening in Western society. There's only two games on the table at the moment. One game is divide and conquer, and the other game is unite and thrive. And look at the number of people that are incarcerated. Now, why? For me, hurt people hurt people. And because of their childhood trauma, they expect to be punished, right? That's their expectation. Now, how about if we took that realization with that hurt person and help them to heal? That's what we should be doing. We don't need prisons. I don't believe anybody is born innately evil and nasty. It's just the wounds that they're carrying, they just react and recreate as adults. So, you know, it may sound like love and peace, man, and woo hippie shit, but all you need is love, and that's such an old chestnut. But my healing was not complete until I was able to forgive my abusers. But I had to go through that process of acknowledging my pain, sharing my story, hearing the story of my abusers, and then moving from hate through understanding back to love. And the other thing I will say is, so many people are not taking responsibility for their lives. I am master and commander of my life, and I take full responsibility for this life that I do create. So I've got nobody to blame. I can't point the finger at anybody. Oh, you did this to me. No, my reality is I've created this event in my life, and there is a lesson here for me to learn. So what is the lesson I need to learn here? And that's how I operate. Because if you are not creating your life, who is?
I think it's such an important point, and it's something I've really given an awful lot of thought and feeling to over the last year, because I see it all the time. And just going back to a couple of points you raised there. One, the love is really important. I mean, when you work with rescued and traumatized animals, by showing them the love is the quickest way to the healing. You're not going to get there through discipline and more fear tactics. And it's so powerful. Really, really powerful. And then that is definitely the same with humans. But one question I wanted to ask you about what you've just said is, what have you learned along your journey about boundaries?
Absolutely essential. You know, as I said, I'm sovereign, which means I'm my own kingdom. I have my own boundaries, one of them which is my skin. That's my physical boundary. But I have my energetic boundary. And a lot of people don't have boundaries at all. They're total space invaders. You know, just look at America. Sure. Oh, Bob, that's my mouth. But boundaries are essential. Having good boundaries. And for me, my boundaries are the golden frame around the masterpiece that is me. That's how I look at them. Because I need to know where I finish and you begin. And without boundaries, you can't make that distinction. Can you?
No, and it's really difficult because, you know, if people don't have boundary standards. So, you know, where do your individual boundary lies with your integrity? What will you let go and be lenient on? And what's your absolute no point? And I've seen a lot of conflict in people with this recently, because, you know, just take something very simple about wearing the mask or not. You know, how many people do you know that sort of don't believe it does any good at all, but are just prepared to go along with it because it's easier? And in every aspect of our lives, when we're interacting with other humans, with trees, with animals, with everything, if we don't know where our own boundaries lie, morally, behaviorally, physically, then it makes it really, really difficult for any other species to interact with us, I feel, because you're giving out conflicting signals.
Precisely. Yeah, for me, boundaries are really simple. It's if I'm in a dialogue with somebody and they're being really abusive or being judgmental, I'll say, "Whoa, hang on, brother. You know, if you're going to carry on like that, I'm out of here. You know, but if you want to have a meaningful discussion, let's drop the judgment. You share your truth, I'll share my truth, and we'll look for some common ground to try and find a win-win situation." And I like the example that relationship counselors use a lot. And I don't know if you've heard of it. It's the toothpaste tube. Have you heard of it?
No.
Oh, okay. It's a lovely little example.
No.
I'm in a relationship with a beautiful, loving lady, and the honeymoon's over, so we're both fighting in bed. You know, it's 6 months have passed, so we're being real with each other. But it really pisses me off because she keeps squeezing the toothpaste from the middle of the tube. You know, that really pisses me off. It's only a little thing. So I say to her, "Hey, darling, in future, could you roll the toothpaste up from the bottom instead of squeezing it in the middle? Because it really pisses me off." Now, I've got that out. I've got that emotion out. I've not swallowed it down and put it in the pressure cooker. So it's out, released. Now, she can hear what I say and acquiesce and start rolling it up from the bottom. Or she can say, "Well, stuff you. I'm going to keep squeezing it from the middle." Or we each get our own tube of toothpaste. So there is always a win-win scenario. There's always, but the most important thing for me is to get the feeling out in the moment. Get the feeling out. Don't, any feelings that you swallow will one day come back and choke you. That has been my experience.
Yeah.
Get rid of the pressure cooker.
Luckily, I'm good at getting rid of that pressure cooker. I must have Italian blood in me. I don't have any trouble expressing my emotions.
Magnifico!
Yeah, it's normally written all over my face, as I've been told many times. But no, it is very important. And, you know, a lot of people don't know how to feel their emotions, do they? Because particularly, again, I'll take a lot of youngsters. You know, so many youngsters are so attached to their electronic aids and things. They've lost touch with themselves, I would say. And it's not just youngsters, it can be people in office jobs, etc. But a lot of people really struggle to know what they're feeling, don't they? And to express that.
Well, again, go back 50, 60, 70, everything that's happening in this well-planned, well-structured campaign to numb us out, put us all under control. It's been going on for centuries. These guys are clever. These guys are clever. And the answer is so simple. And the Egyptians knew this as well. Like when the pharaoh died and they preparing the body, mummifying, first thing they did was take out the brain and throw it in the bin. And then the first thing they mummified was the heart.
Was it? I didn't know that.
The heart was the center as far as they was concerned. And even science now, you know, can measure the aura of the brain, what it's radiating out to about a couple of inches.
Yeah.
But the heart, they can pick up feet away.
Now, I was just working.
It's the greatest source of energy.
I was working today with a client today on exactly this, the most amazing lady and her lovely dog. And we were talking about this, and dogs have got the biggest heart to body mass ratio out of any animal they've measured. And horses' heart radiance electronic field goes out so far, it's unbelievable. But we were having this exact conversation about how much more the heart radiates out than the head. And you can imagine from an animal's perspective, where they're so heart-centered and that's where they live for, how confusing it is to live with us. But it's confusing for us because this is deliberately scrambled so much. And, you know, we put in Western society, all the credit and the accolades are put on in intelligence, however you monitor that, and nothing on your heart, your intuition, your compassion, etc. And there's a bit of me, I hate to say it, and I'll get shouted down for this, but you've got to admire the evil lot, because their plan has been quite brilliantly executed. It's been brilliantly devised and brilliantly executed.
Yeah, it's drip by drip.
Yeah.
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, and that's what they've been doing. They've just been nibbling away. But I live in a heart space, and I used to live in headspace in the Matrix. For me, headspace, thinking is headspace, feeling is heart space, competition is headspace, cooperation is heart space, religion is headspace, spirituality is heart space. And living in heart space now, and I have mastery over my mind because I just treat it like my little dog, you know. Living in heart space, I no longer need to meditate because there is no monkey mind chatter going on, because my little monkey mind is fast asleep in his basket. And when he wakes up all keen and eager, I'll send him off on an errand. So, you know, I am master of my mind, and I'm a good parent of my mind. But my mind is only one of the tools that I have in my toolbox as the spiritual mechanic.
It's so true, isn't it? It's so true. And, you know, I can see, you know, the things that I used to value as important 20 years ago bear no resemblance, although the core was always there. You know, the core of us is always there. It's just sometimes gets very hidden, and it can be confusing. So just like if you've got a dog who's got a parent or owner, whatever you want to call it, that's giving out conflicting, unclear messages to that animal, the dog doesn't know where the boundaries are. The dog doesn't know what's acceptable. And I think that's exactly what we do to ourselves. We're so caught between how we think we've got to behave and react in society, and the reason we're caught is that's conflicting with what our internal, our heart, our soul, our intuition is telling us. So most people are caught, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, in this conflict, do you think?
Yeah, well, people have got to make this choice, haven't they? Is it worth all the pain that they're feeling in their life? And they've got to get real with themselves, you know. Denial is not a big river in Africa.
Yes.
they got to get real with themselves and to say, well, look, am I willing to keep living this life in pain in exchange for a weekly paid packet?
Exactly.
And somebody else to wipe me ass, you know, or do I stand as a sovereign human being? And one thing you said about intelligence, I love the Bible. It's a great book of myths, but like all myths, there's some real gems in there. Now, Adam and Eve got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. I haven't seen them in my garden, but for eating from the tree of knowledge. So that just says to me that the pursuit of knowledge is the original sin.
Yeah.
Okay. So within the silence of my heart, I've found a place I call my knowing. And it is a feeling. It is a feeling of connection to source. And it's where I get all my downloads from and all my little insights from. So for me, knowledge is headspace, or the pursuit of knowledge is headspace.
Yeah.
But knowing is heart space. I know who I am, and from that, for me, freedom is an inside job. Sure, the cops could come and arrest me, but they can't take away what I know to be my truth. You know, freedom is an inside job. But you don't get it by sitting on the lounge watching the plasma. You got to go in and do the work.
You've got to go in and do the work. You've got to connect with nature, whatever resonates you. But you know, I think this is key to everything that's at the moment. So we've got all these debates going on. So I trained as a biologist. I love understanding on an intellectual level how things work. But then I mix that with, does that feel right to me? Does it make sense? And systems theory and connection and understanding that nothing in the universe works in isolation. But this difference between knowledge and knowing is really key. So one of my friends, big shout out to Troy Casey, the certified health nut. Now, we've had some fantastic discussions in the past. And it's about when you have that internal knowing, you don't need to justify yourself to anyone. So we're so used to being battered down by, can you research? Can you name the research? Can you prove it? Can you doing this? And that has never been what life's about. If you're in your survival instincts, you don't need to prove to the other members of your tribe that there's a lion about to eat you. You know it, and you will follow that. And I think this is where we've gone so wrong of valuing that knowledge over above the knowing, and the balance has completely gone, hasn't it? And if we get back to listening to our internal knowing and trusting ourselves for that, then so many of our problems will disappear just literally in an instant.
Well, the best thing that Eckhart Tolle ever said, and he's turned into a spiritual parasite, but I won't go there.
Yeah, we won't go there.
The best thing he ever said was, totally let go of the need to understand anything.
Yeah.
Because that is so liberating. You know,
so
I've got a computer. I don't know how it works. Well, I actually do, but you know what I mean? I don't know how it works, but I know what it can do. So I value it for its utility.
Yeah.
I don't need to know, you know, the minutiae. And for me, science and technology are a construct of the mind, but the mind is only part of me, and I am a direct construct of creation. So there's that hierarchy there. So science can never, ever explain creation. It just can't. It never can. But that's what psychiatrists and psychologists are trying to do. They're trying to explain what's normal human behavior. Well, hey, we're all unique. Get over it. There is no such thing as normal.
And normal in what circumstance? You're trying to expect a person to behave in what they classify as normal in a situation that doesn't suit us at all. I'll take it back to the dog example. You know, what people call a normal behavior and what they don't want. Classic example is, I don't want my dog barking. Well, it's communicating. What do you want? The burglar coming in the door. You know, make your mind up. It's like we try and fit normal into a completely abnormal way of living. The way most of us are living is not normal at all. It's just not normal. It doesn't suit us. The results speak for itself. If it was normal and it suited us, we wouldn't have this epidemic of mental illness or of physical illness. And it's hysterical. They're trying to make a round peg fit into a square box. It's incredible. Oh, it's your little doggy in the background. So tell
Charlie.
me, in terms of this, because I think this is a really crucial, because obviously this is going to hit home with a lot of people who have been labelled either by themselves or others of having a mental illness. And it can be quite challenging to sort of, you know, suddenly have someone telling you there's no such thing. So what would be some of the, I know you've touched on some of them, but say you were speaking to someone now that was thinking they were suffering from a serious depression and has been told by the professionals that there's a chemical imbalance in the brain. What advice could you give this person? Where can you start?
There's one question, one fundamental question I asked myself probably about 15 years ago was, Bob, what's the longest relationship you've ever had in your life? And the answer was simple. It is with me. Ergo, I am the only expert on my life. And so why am I listening to these fuckwits telling me there's something wrong with me? And that was an opening. And the so-called professionals, for me, the only experts on depression, on PTSD, are the normal everyday people that have worked their way through by going on their own hero's journey, facing their demons and turning them into angels.
You should see what
facing the fears, facing their fears. He's having a ball.
Yeah. Sorry, I am listening. It's very serious, but it's hysterical. Yeah. And the biggest stumbling block I had when I had my first panic attack was the power of these feelings were just so overwhelming that my body didn't know what to do. So it was, I was, arms and legs were going everywhere. And I was so frightened. I didn't know what to do. And so I went to the doctor and he said, well, you've got depression, take these drugs. And that was okay initially because they actually disconnected me from the power of the feelings. But then when I realized that I'm the only expert on my life and I healed the wounds of my childhood and got rid of those deep down trapped feelings, I then noticed that my biggest fear was the fear I had of how powerful my feelings were, but the power of my feelings is just a direct measure of how powerful I really am. Yeah.
And so I embrace them, don't cross me because that Jolly Green Giant's got nothing on me. I could lift an aircraft carrier, Sometimes that's the power of me, and I'm content with me. So and because I'm content with me, I don't have to compete with anybody. I've got nothing to prove. I don't have to justify anything. For me, the only place for labels is in the supermarket. So I know what I'm about to eat. How can you put a label on somebody that's unique? That's the only label. You are beautifully unique. That's the only label. It's only ego that wants to judge. Oh, I'm better than you. You're just a road sweeper. I'm a clinical psychologist. All this one-upmanship bollocks.
Fit in anyway. I don't want to fit in. Fit in with who? I think this last year has really shown people how much they have compromised, because a lot of people have looked very closely at their sort of friendship groups, their associates, and thought, gosh, we're just not aligned, and there's no right or wrong in it. It's not that one person's better than the other or anything, but trying to squeeze yourself into fitting into a situation that you don't feel comfortable with. There's never a winner in that, is there? There just isn't. It's a losing situation. But when you realize that it's absolutely fine to be yourself, and then you will attract and the right things to you, again, the struggle goes, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I've just come to the conclusion that I can't wake anybody up, and I worked as a counsellor. The best thing I can do is just let my own light shine. And what I know is whatever I radiate, I create. So I consciously choose to radiate joy. And the more I do that, the more joy there is in my life, the more joyous people I meet. Instead of these 50-year-old
dog you've got.
Yeah. Instead of all these 50-year-old, 5-year-olds, still stamping their feet and ranting and blaming the world for their miserable life. Well, you know, you're creating your life. You know, get used to it. Take charge of it. Become master and commander of your life. Because if you're not in the driving seat, well, who is?
Yeah, and someone else will be.
Yeah, and who is really appropriate? Like the World Health Organization.
Yes. Oh God, there's a lot of fun acronyms we can have for that. We better not say it in this video, otherwise I'll get banned again. So I'm working hard not to get banned again too quickly. But yeah, so that is fantastic. So you've given some really good practical advice to people. How can people contact you, Bob, if they want to find out more?
Bobeden on Facebook.
Yeah.
Or just do a Google search or DuckDuckGo search for The Gift of Depression, Bobeden, and all my interviews will come up there. But the best way is just send me a friend request on Facebook. And because, yeah, I'm never sure where my phone is. I won't have a smartphone. I just think it's silly to put a miniature microwave cooker up against my brain because microwaves cook meat from the inside out. That's just another way they're numbing us down. Like man boobs is another way of destroying our beautiful physique, because our current farming situation, the breeders are injecting estrogen into the animals to fatten them up quickly, and then that's why men get boobs. And there's so many other examples of, you know, you just gotta look at it and say, well, everything I would taught, everything I held sacred was an absolute lie. So I set off on my own quest to find out what is true for me. I question everything. And how do I know what is my truth? Whatever resonates with my heart.
Yeah.
If this feels right, it is right. I don't think about it. I don't think about it. I don't even like the word think.
You know, I have to laugh at myself because for years I have overcomplicated things. And now you adopt this thing. I'm so pleased you said that about the not needing to meditate, because I completely agree now, because I just don't have those internal battles anymore. I have fascinating conversations with interesting people like you, where I learn and I get to look at things from different perspectives that I hadn't thought of and things like that. But I don't have any conflict anymore because I've got that inner knowing where I know where something resonates with you and whether it doesn't. And even if I've lost the need to be able to explain it anymore. And that's just really freeing. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely wonderful. It's so much easier. I wish I'd learned this years ago. It's wonderful.
Kiss. Keep it simple, sovereign.
Yeah. It's oh, I could talk to you for hours, Bob. I can't. Will you do another one in a couple of weeks' time? Because there's so much else to talk about.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, darling. I'm not.
Yeah, I've got a couple of my friends that would love to. If you're open to having a couple more people in on the discussion as well, because I think
that'd be great.
Interesting, because I've got some other friends that have got some brilliant perspectives on this. So. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And it's really lovely. And what I love about you, I mean, I've spoken to you quite a few times now, only a couple of times on camera, but it's so authentic. And you've been through the journey and you've learned what works for you and you're applying it in everyday life. And as I said, the proof is in the pudding. Every time I've spoken to you, your dog has been having the most joyous time behind you. And that's because of the...
Hey, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. It's the energy that you're giving off. It's contagious. Oh, look at you, you handsome boy.
He's chunky. He's solid.
He's gorgeous, isn't he? He's absolutely gorgeous. Look at that little face. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Bob. Is there anything you want to say before we finish? Any other final messages you want to give people?
Well, just a quote from Shakespeare. Above all, be true to thine own self.
Repeat that.
Above all, be true to thine own self.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a very good one. Thank you, Shakespeare, and thank you, Bob. And thank you so much for getting up so early to speak to me, because I turn into a pumpkin if it gets too late here. You see, I've got to go and feed all my creatures, which is one of my favourite jobs, actually, because the foxes will be out there as well tonight. So thank you. And I will put your contact details below, and we will look forward to having another chat, hopefully in a couple of weeks' time.
Great.
Thank you. Have an amazing day.
It's a day. It will be amazing because I create my day. This is why my life is amazing. Exactly. Because I create it that way. Bye, darling.
Bye.